If you obey all of the rules, you miss all of the fun. It's not the men in your life that counts. It's the life in your men. I'm ready for my close-up. Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night. Hello and welcome to the Get Glam and Go-Go Show. I'm the host of the show, burlesque performer and founder of Babes Rage, Jenny Pierce, here with another episode where we speak to the creators and the innovators who are currently involved in burlesque, go-go, and that's right, glamour, the topic of our show today. Today, we're speaking with a unique creator who captures the essence of glamour and recreates some of the most iconic old Hollywood looks and movie scenes. We're happy to welcome Harlow Harlow, aka Them Fatale, to the show.
Hi.
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining and making time for this on a lovely Sunday afternoon.
Oh my God, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
I kept my intro short because I thought I would just let you speak for yourself, and you're so unusual. I went to your profile. This is what I usually do when I'm hosting a podcast. I go to people's profiles or their LinkedIn pages or websites, and I look for information to, create a summary or an intro. And you are a person who is hard to put in a box. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've had a few lives.
On your profile, it does say that you are a nostalginista. So, my first question is, what is a nostalginista?
I'm so happy you asked. I think so. I don't know if I coined that term or not, but I've never heard anyone use it, so I'm going to take credit for it. For me, a nostalginista is just someone who consumes nostalgia, who is a connoisseur of nostalgia, but uses it with a modern twist, a modern edge. Looks at it with two different types of lenses, both old and new, and then try to make it your own.
Right. So that's interesting because, I was thinking about including this in the intro, but again, it's our first time meeting over, of course, online, and I don't want to speak for people, but I think that you are a perfect embodiment of the hashtag, what is it? Vintage fashion, but
Yeah,
vintage.
vintage style, not vintage value.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay, I'm so happy to just dive right into this. So, tell me about your background and your current creative work. Where are you from, and when did you become interested in fashion and glamour?
So I'm originally from Houston,
Oh,
born and fed, and then I went to college and I lived in Chicago for many, many years, and then
oh,
I've been recently in New York for about 3 years now. And my love for vintage, my love for basically everything that is what I'm about, all stems from seeing Marilyn Monroe for the first time. I was very young. I watched Gentlemen for Blondes, and I just remember seeing her and being like, I don't know what this is, but this is what I want to be.
mm-hmm.
And then, but I think with as vintage folk, especially vintage folk who didn't grow up around that, I didn't know that people dressed like that anymore. I didn't know that vintage glamour existed until then I saw Dita Von Teese on, I think, Top Model. And then I saw her in everywhere because she was blowing up at that point. And I was like, oh, wait, you can look like this now? And so it was kind of like two phases. I discovered Marilyn Monroe and then I discovered Dita, and they both kind of taught me my love for vintage glamour, but then also that you can do that now. It doesn't have to exist within the time it came from.
Right. It's timeless.
Exactly. And I say my aesthetic and my style really has evolved with my gender journey. I identify as non-binary trans feminine, meaning I use they them pronouns. I don't see myself as saying gender, but I only feel comfortable presenting myself in the feminine.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I really got to know myself in Chicago. All my friends in Chicago are drag artists, queer artists,
Mhm.
nightlife performers. And being around that energy and that circle really helped me not only understand my gender identity, but also help me understand I can present myself however I want.
Yes.
So probably around like 2016, 17 is really when like my style journey began.
So here's a question, and um, I think maybe I understand. I don't know, but I'm not going to make any assumptions. So, but why not just do drag? Do people ask you that sometimes?
You know, it's so funny because I actually asked myself that.
Hmm.
Like, for me, being around drag for so many years, I obviously thought about doing it for a long time. And then one of my friends his partner is a very famous drag queen. I was talking to him one time and he looked at me and goes, "You're already in drag already.
Yeah.
Like, you do that.
Yeah.
Like, you do drag."
Yes.
And I realized, like, yeah, I do. I
Hmm.
don't need to do drag. I kind of already live as a full time drag. And it dawned on me, I am at my most self and my most comfortable in drag. And I think, are in this kind of drag. And
Hmm.
I think that's kind of the differentiation between, like, not saying that trans people don't do drag, many do, and many are the greatest at it, but I think that's kind of where you feel the difference between, like, I don't want to just dress up for performance. I want to dress so I can feel like myself and feel centered.
Right.
I feel my most centered and my most, like, in my body when my waist is cinched and I have makeup on and I have long red nails on. Don't look at my nails right now. They all came off. But yeah, for me, it just was like, yeah, this isn't like a performance thing. It's me. And that's kind of the difference.
So, do you consider yourself a conceptual artist, or this is just who you are and how you dress every single day, and you're sharing that on social media?
I think both. I think because when I think both, because I think most of the time I really am just presenting myself. But then a real big reason why my social media started kind of, I won't say blow up because I don't have that big of a following, but like started tractioning is because I would be editing myself into vintage Hollywood stills and old fashioned editorials. Mainly because I love the idea. It was COVID, so we were really locked down. But I wanted to see myself be in different worlds at once, and also at the same time see someone like me in these kind of photos that I never saw before. Like, I never, as much as like I idolize like Marilyn, I didn't see myself as her because I'm not her,
Hmm.
and I never saw anyone like me. So for me to like edit myself in those photos was kind of selfishly for me to finally see someone like me in those kind of photos.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I mean, I
Right?
can relate to that in a way because my thing with doing, or when I started pinup and doing burlesque and stuff, I realized like no one is ever going to give you a stamp of approval or even encourage you to do these things, to see yourself in this way, right? So why not just do it for yourself and just say, I am this if I want to be this, and here I am being this thing or being this person. And I think it's very validating, right? Because, it's
Yeah.
like no one's ever going to say, hey, we think you should do this. I mean, of course, we have a support system that will encourage and say, follow your dreams and this, that, and the other. But yeah, it's really up to you in the end to follow through.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess to like answer your question, I'm presenting myself, but then I guess myself can lend to conceptual ideas.
Right.
So it's like a yes and no kind of answer.
Yeah. Do you have a job where you're able to dress like that every day, or do you have like another style that you present as at work?
No, I'm me. Like, what you see online, really what you see online is what you get.
Mhm. Okay.
I think the difference that I have found when I have met people who followed me before they actually met me in person is
Mhm.
that I am simultaneously quieter in person and also a lot zanier in person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think we all do online. We present such a polished image, but like when I'm with my people, like honestly, like I'm a little white trash from Texas. Like you know, like I like a high life with a shot of Southern comfort. Like I don't think people would look at me and think that. So
Yeah.
I forgot your question.
No, that's dynamic. I like that. On that note, I poured myself a little tiny sip of tequila before recording, so I'm gonna take a
Please.
little sip.
What kind of tequila?
Oh, um, is it Patron? Yeah, it's my weakness.
Ooh, classy.
I get these little ones. Just a little
I love
sip, you
that.
know.
Yeah, just a little.
Well, that's inspiring. That's inspiring,
Yeah.
and I like that. I don't know. I like what you do. And so, yeah.
Thank you.
So, what inspires you to remake looks from the past?
Again, that I never saw anyone like me. Like I grew up, I'm a cinephile first and foremost. I'm a movie nerd. I'm a self-appointed movie historian. I love film and film history and the glamour of it. And I never saw myself both as a non-binary person, as a fat person, and also sometimes frankly as a Jewish person. I never saw myself in any of those movie stills or those fashion editorials that I grew up idolizing. So for me, once I understood I can dress however I want, I can look however I want, and not only can I be a vintage person, I don't have to subscribe to just one aesthetic, one time period. I can do how I, usually for me, like I wake up with a song in my head, and that's what era I decide to be that day.
Oh, that's great.
And also kind of like the style of it too. So if I have like a Patsy Cline song in my head, I'll do like a 50s country look.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I have a Nancy Sinatra look, I want something that's like gonna show my legs.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of all comes together. And so for me, that really has allowed me to just morph into these different parts of who I am and then create art around that. And so it really is it really is all for me. And with the hope that there's someone out there who may be like me that needs to see someone like me so they can say, oh, there's someone in these vintage photos that is like me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how do you define glamour? Would you say that that's the backbone of everything that you do, fashion or glamour? And if so, how do you define that?
For me, I'm mesmerized by anyone who like commits to the bit. So like for me, if your aesthetic, like if you commit to a certain aesthetic
Mm-hmm.
and you go full out, for me that's glamour. Like even if I don't like, I am the furthest thing from like goth, but like people who like are like very punk hardcore aesthetics. But for me, whenever I see someone who has like a billion piercings in their face and tattoos everywhere and like huge hair like going out in different directions, I'm like, that is so fierce.
Yeah.
Like I love that. Like for me, it's like, yeah, just like owning your aesthetics, owning what makes you feel the most you, and feeling it. Like glamour for me can come from so little, but it's just about the person's attitude and how they like feel it.
Right. Attitude and like an aura, right?
Yeah.
Glamour is
I'm
like
confident.
exuding an aura. That's interesting. Okay, so in your opinion, what are the top five? Oh, I love this question. In your opinion, I know you do like the look breakdowns and people love that, right? That type of content. So in your opinion, what are the top five most iconic looks or trends from the 1960s and why?
Ooh, okay. For me, like the defining fashion image of the 60s is that image of Doña Luna in the Paco Rabanne metal dress.
Oh, yes.
For me, like the 60s beauty and glamour, like that embodies everything, like how out there fashion was and how experimental fashion was becoming and playing with shapes like that box shape, but it still was like had a sexiness to it, and how eye makeup especially was becoming the focus, and everything was being really, again, experimental and geometric. And also, like, for me, like, whenever I think the 60s, I really think of, like, the Black is Beautiful movement, and, like, how beauty standards were, like, very slowly, like, very, very snail's pace slowly, but just starting to change. And you start to see models like Donia Luna. And, you know, even though I don't look like her and I can't relate to her history, but as someone who always has felt different and learning about someone like her and what the Black is Beautiful movement meant, I'm like, okay, I can, like, feel that, and that felt important to me to see at a young, or learn about at a young age. And just seeing, like, the sexuality of the time period too, how that affected clothing, and how you saw in that image. For me, that is, like, the ultimate image of the 60s.
Okay. Fantastic.
And I think, like, everything that I just, like, trend-wise, like, big eye makeup, short skirts, experimenting with styles and shapes, like, that is everything for me the 60s is.
So, do you have any tips for people who want to try fashion looks or makeup but feel shy or feel like it's not for them or they don't know where to start?
So when it comes to makeup, like, I am such a perfectionist, and I think it also comes from, like, if you ever grew up fat, you are so self-conscious of, like, having a stain on your shirt or just looking messy at all, because you automatically feel that someone's going to look at you and go, oh, there's a sloppy fat person. So for me, I will say makeup, I personally took my time going outside with certain makeup styles until I felt confident showing it off. So I just say, like, practice, practice, practice. My favorite relaxation is to have a little greenery,
Oh,
put on a good playlist,
yeah.
and just, like, play with makeup.
Uh-huh.
So for me, it's just, like, practice makes perfect, but also just, like, have fun with it while you're doing it. And once you feel comfortable with something, then go out and then feel yourself. Because trust me, you will feel yourself when you feel comfortable with it. And same thing with fashion. I think that do everything at a pace that's going to make you feel comfortable. To my gender non-conforming folk, the first time I ever stepped outside in a dress was, like, the most horrifying feeling, because I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen to me once I leave this door. And I will say that it's just, like, a thought that I think we all have in our heads when we leave the house. That's just, like, a part of this life. But once you get out that door, once you get that first smile from someone, or someone tells you you look pretty, the feelings just go away. So it's all about just, like, conquering the fear, conquering insecurity, and just going for it. And once you realize that, like, not only are you doing yourself a service by conquering it, but, like, it does come back to you. Like, you will receive positivity from it. It's great. So I just say, like, F the rule book, but do it at your own pace.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So obviously you're a contemporary creator who isn't letting traditional roles or duality define you. You're
Absolutely.
sharing your art on a public social platform where anyone can, and I'm sure does say hateful things. In fact, when I was looking at your profile the other day, I saw a comment that was horrible, And um, does this bother you? Does it impact you? How could it not bother you? And if it does, what does it make you feel? Or how does this, impact you?
I mean, I will say this. I think I'm very rare of how much of a tough skin I have. For me, it's like 90% of the time I see something and I automatically remind myself, pretend like I'm holding my phone. This microcosm doesn't exist here. This is not this.
Yeah.
This person is just here, and I can delete and block them and move on.
Right.
And that's my main attitude. For me, it's just like, I'm confident in myself. I know who I am. I know, like, yeah, like, also it's just like, yeah, I'm fat, duh. Like, I see myself. Like, you don't, okay? Like, that's my attitude for like, especially when it comes to weight. I'm just like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and your perception is noted. Your perception is noted. Quite thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Like it does. It just. I once heard Elizabeth Taylor talk about when she was getting like berated with fat jokes, and someone actually no. So Joan Rivers used to do a lot of fat jokes about Elizabeth Taylor, and it was one time, and Joan started to feel like it was getting out of hand. So they had a mutual friend, and she asked the mutual friend to go to her and ask her if it was really upsetting her, because if it really was, she said she would stop it. And Elizabeth Taylor came back and said, "Tell Joan it doesn't hurt me where I live," and that's kind of how I feel. At the end of the day, it doesn't hurt me where I live. Now there is that 10% where I could be in it. I could be really down, or you just catch me at the wrong time and I see something transphobic, especially, or fatphobic, and I'm like, again, I don't know what to say to you, but also like, why do you care? For
Mm-hmm.
me, when it comes to the transphobia, this is my take and opinion. Most of the people, especially the men that come in, they love the dolls. They want the dolls. They are too hateful themselves to love a doll. A doll, by the way, for those who don't know, is a term for like a trans woman or trans feminine person.
Oh.
And so they're constantly searching for people like us, but they want to come into our comments and disturb our peace because they feel we are disturbing their peace by
Oh.
their attraction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's how I look at it, and I just immediately block and delete. I will say, as my platform has grown, and there's been a couple of times where I've had, not even on my own accounts, but like through other people's, I've had viral moments. And I have seen some extreme ugliness. There is a makeup brand that I've collaborated with. I'm not going to say who, but I learned very quickly that their client base is rabidly transphobic.
Hmm.
And those were the first time they reposted one of my photos. It was the first time I heard like the most vile things that you could refer to a queer or trans person as. And I had to literally kind of like sit and be like, do I want to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Is this worth it?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just like, I had to go back to that. It's all in here.
Yeah.
Everywhere else. My world, my bubble, my circle is loving and caring.
Right.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
And that's just why I have to remind myself.
Yeah. I could imagine in a scenario like that, and I don't know if I fully understand the context, but for example, if you were watching a brand or a company that you worked with or a friend not go to bat for you and not, like stick up for you or delete comments or handle it the way you think that it should be handled, I could see how that would be hurtful.
Yeah. And I've dealt with that. I have dealt with that in real life. And I will say this, the minute it happened, done. Like, I didn't
Yeah,
even approach them. I was just like, block, block, block.
that's great.
No.
Well, you have
Yeah.
great boundaries, you know?
Yeah. Well, I have gone through a lot of I'm someone who has dealt with anxiety, I'm OCD, eating disorder. Like, I've had a lot of disruptions of peace.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in my 30s now, and it's just that place, I think, where you get to it and you go, I got through all this,
Mm-hmm.
all of this now. If I can get through that, I can get through a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of like made me a stronger person, but also kind of like, I just don't want to deal with it.
Right.
Like, it's just like, yeah, it's just like, I don't have to deal with it, then
Yeah.
I'm not going to deal with it. Yeah.
How do you feel about, it's interesting because obviously because you're different, I've got these questions, but one kind of interesting take on it is that just because you're posting your art and you are this person doesn't necessarily mean that you want to be a role model, right? A role model or an
No.
advocate, right? So, but it kind of puts you in that position a little bit. How do you feel about that? And like, for example, I mean, there must be people, young people who artists or individuals who are outside of societal norms, right? Or traditional boundaries, and they look up to you, right? I mean, you're kind of putting yourself in that position. And so, how do you feel about that?
I mean, if someone, I think I think that when it comes to like advocacy, activism, protests, everyone has their own shape and form, and I think for someone like me, um, my activism, my act of protest is just me existing as authentically as I can and being as public as I can about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, like, do not get me wrong. I don't think I am a great, like, role model per se, in a sense. Like, outside of just, like, living authentically. Like, my content, I don't want, like, I'm not kid friendly. I'm not, like, like, I have some more, not adult, but I have some more of like pinup type stuff on my profile. I have like, for me, I hope I want it to be more like adult friendly,
Mm-hmm.
my content.
Right.
But, yeah, I don't know. That's a hard thing to say. I'm circling right now,
Mm-hmm.
but like, it's hard to say. Like, if you look up to me, great. But also, like, if you're looking for a certain type of role model and you want me to be that and I'm not that,
Mm-hmm.
then you can find that from someone else.
Right.
There's incredible queer, especially activists in the social media space who are like true blue 101 activists.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, me just existing as myself
Mm-hmm.
and being as in your face about it is my act of protest.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay. Well, so my next, and I guess this is my last series of questions. What is your dream for the future? How far do you see this going? I mean, do you want to star in movies?
Oh, why not? I would love that. That'd be cool. I don't know. Honestly, my dream is I mean, this is so cheesy and generic, but like my dream is really to look back at my old age and just kind of when I like morph into the plastic doll and like 10th wife that that I hope to become. And just kind of look back at everything I've done and just like, you did good.
Yeah.
You did good. Like, that's the ultimate dream. I would love my social media to keep growing and growing. I would love for myself to get more into the film space. That's really my goal. And we got some projects coming out that are moving into that I'm hoping will lead me more into that space. But yeah, I just want to keep living, keep being beautiful,
Yeah.
and keep doing what I'm doing and hopefully keep growing.
Okay. All right. So, well, if people listening want to follow you, how can they find you? Is Instagram the best platform?
Instagram is the best platform. Also TikTok. I'm very active on there. And it's great because Instagram is really like style. TikTok is really film stuff. So you get a little bit of differentiation from platforms.
Mm-hmm.
My Instagram is at them, just THEM_Fatal and them Fatal 93 on TikTok.
All right. Well, Harlow, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate your time and you sharing your incredible art. And just who
Thank
you
you so
are, of
much for
course, too. Yes.
yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun.
Absolutely. Thank you for tuning in to the Get Glam and Go Go Show. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe. I'm your host, signing off for today. Thanks for listening.